Hello everyone and welcome to our course From Media Computation to Data Science. My name is Jadka Hügle.
And I'm Jens Mönig.
We're the Snap team at SAP and we're excited to invite you along for 4 weeks packed with fun activities exploring media and data in Snap.
We're going to examine the digital building blocks media are made of, how to enumerate and transform them, and in doing so, we learn general programming concepts that can be applied to all kinds of data. One of the core ideas will be to deep dive into what in computer science is called high-order functions.
The cool thing about media computation is that it seamlessly segues into techniques used in gleaning insights from large data sets. This week is all about getting to know different kinds of media. We'll play with pictures, text, music, sound, and even live video.
And we can't wait to share a bunch of crazy cool project ideas with you to follow along.
Now I'll leave the stage to Jens, who is going to guide you through your first project. I'll stick around and see you later in the second video.
Thank you, Jadka. There is something magical about media. If you think about a picture or listening to music, it feels like there is a direct access to your emotion. There's also something magic about time travel. Imagine you could look back in time. Imagine having that crystal ball or a looking glass that would allow you to see the world 100 years ago. This is going to be our first project. We open Snap and we'll import 2 pictures of the same scene. I'm going to look for a picture of a glacier. Here's a picture of a glacier back then. And there's another one, how it looks now. I'm going to drag this over. Now in my project, there are 2 pictures in the Costumes tab. Those are costumes of my sprite. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make that sprite undraggable so I can't accidentally move it with the mouse. So here are 2 scenes, and the idea is that we want to look at this scene of how the bay looks today and then have that magic looking glass and glance back and discover how it looked 100 years ago. For this, we're going to make a second sprite and we're going to draw a looking glass. And if you want to draw a sprite right away, you can click on this button that lets you paint a new sprite, and that will open our paint editor in which we can now just draw something by freehand. A looking glass is round shaped or filled round shaped, so I'm going to click on that. And here's a trick. If you keep the Shift key pressed, your shapes will be regular. That is, we'll draw a perfect circle. And we're going to draw it inside out in Snap. So I'm keeping the Shift key pressed, and now I can draw a circle. I can change its diameter, and this seems just about the right shape. It's a black circle. You can take any color. And when I click OK, here's a second sprite on my stage. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rename that sprite. That is going to be called Looking Glass. And also be sure again to make it undraggable, so we're not accidentally going to move it with the mouse, but we're going to program it so it will follow the mouse. We go to the scripts area and we go to the control category and check out the user interaction blocks. These are the hat blocks that start a script that's attached underneath to them. So the third hat block is called When I Am. we're going to drag out this block and check out the options. I can specify an option for being clicked, pressed, that's when the mouse goes down. Dropped is when I'm dragging it and dropping it on the stage. When the mouse enters, when the mouse leaves, or when a scrolling event is applied to it. And for this, I want it to react as soon as the mouse is pressed. So I'm going to select pressed. Now what I want to do is I want it to follow the mouse while the mouse is pressed. That means I'm going to take out the repeat until block, attach it underneath, and say it's going to follow the mouse until the mouse no longer is pressed. So it is until not, in the sensing category, the mouse is down. So I'm pressing it, and I can already press it, and you can see the script is firing, and as I'm letting go of the mouse, the script starts running. So what I wanted to do is, I go to the motion category, and I just wanted to go to the mouse pointer. Now we should have a script that lets us drag the sprite along. Let's check it out. I'm moving the mouse over, I'm clicking, and sure enough, the looking glass is following the mouse, and I can drag it over my scenery. And now for the magic part. Now as we move the looking glass along, we wanted to see through that picture back 100 years ago. So what we want to do is, we want to broadcast a message. Remember broadcasts? We want to broadcast something that it should update what's shown. So we're going to make a new event, and we're going to call it update. Now, as we're moving along, also update is fired every time the mouse is moved. And we also want to add one more block to make sure that the looking glass always goes back to its original costume. For this, we can switch back to the costume and rename it. Currently, it's called Costume 1. If we right-click on the icon, we can give it a better name. For example, we can say this is the clear costume. So every time we move the costume, we want it to switch back to the clear costume. So we take out the switch to costume block and select the clear costume. And now for the magic part. Now, when we broadcast this, the update script is going to be handled by our sprite. And in order to make this a little more clear, we'll rename the sprite to something more meaningful. We'll call it canvas, because that's where the picture is shown. And in the canvas, we want to react to the update request. So again, we go to the control category, and we find another one of these hat blocks, and it's this one, when I receive something. So I'm taking this out, and in its drop-down menu, we already have the update, and I spelled it wrong. So I can select it, I can go back and correct it, can make a new one and just say update, and go back and correct this one by just selecting the corrected one. And now I will no longer have the one that I misspelled. So when it is requested to update what's on the looking glass, what we want to do is we want to very quickly switch to the other costume and display that on the looking glass and then switch back again. Switching to another costume can be done in the looks category using the next costume block. If we drag this out and click on it, it goes to the next costume. And since there are only two costumes, by executing it again, it'll go back to the first one. So we just very quickly want to go to the next costume, and then we want to display that costume on the looking glass. Here's another magic block that introduces the concept of clipping or cropping. That is taking a part of a picture, cutting it out in an arbitrary shape to display it on another canvas, on another sprite. And you'll find this in the pen category. This is the paste on block. So then we want to paste on the looking glass. And right after we've done this, we want to again switch back, which in this case is switching forward to the next costume. Get it? What have we done? We've made a looking glass. We've made it so we can drag it along with the mouse. And every time we're dragging it, it requests to be updated. So for other sprite, receives the update request, switches to another picture, and pastes that, it crops it, on the looking glass. Let's try this out. I'm moving the mouse over the looking glass. I'm pressing it, and look what's happening. I'm seeing right through the picture. Let me make this in full screen. What we now see is how this bay looks today, and we can take this lens and move over and see that where today is just a sea, there used to be a huge glacier 100 years ago that is now gone. Ain't that cool? Isn't that magic? Well, sometimes magic is good. Hey, we can look back in time, but sometimes it's not really magic. Sometimes climate change is also something we should worry about. So this is what data helps us understand. By having that direct access through our eyes to our emotions, it's something that makes us wonder about the impact we humans have on the earth, and we can use computers to make that visible. And we can use programming to explore this. And by the way, we've just kind of repeated some of the exercises that you all already know about. We've been working with the concept of a loop by using the repeat until loop. We've also looked at the concept of events by broadcasting something and by reacting to an event. And we've looked at an important building block of media, taking a part of a picture, cutting it apart, and pasting it onto another area. This is going to be your first project. You can already imagine the kinds of fun you can have. For example, taking one face and pasting it on another, exploring how you yourself looked 10 years ago as to how you look now. I'm curious what you make of all of this. And I can't wait to see you again in the next unit.